Welcome back to the Cigar Inspector podcast. Happy? I always screw up the intros, man. Every single time I screw up the intros, right? But yeah, I'm joined once again with my co-host, Ray, who's about to yawn and trying really hard not to yawn, but I wish, but it's been captured on camera as well, so I'm going to have that on the clip. Some big things have been happening in the industry. Some pretty interesting things have been happening in the industry, and these big companies, I mean, they've been doing a lot of movement over the last few years, right? So basically, we're going to be talking about predominantly like some of the companies like SDG, General Tobacco. Is it General Tobacco? General Cigars? General. I'll just call them General.
Yeah.
Yeah. General, SDG. Also, the Habanos Festival is undergoing, but we're not going to touch on that too much because we want to kind of focus on that once the Habanos Festival is over. We could properly talk about it with everything launched and released. But I might touch on it a little bit, and you might tell me to shut the hell up. But I want to touch on it a little bit though, because it's some interesting things have happened today, right?
Well, welcome everyone from me as well. Yeah, you didn't let me say anything.
Sorry,
you just
man.
keep running. So yeah, welcome everyone, and yeah, we're gonna talk some interesting stuff today. I don't know how much
Your
we're gonna
camera's
touch.
this one.
I don't know how much we're gonna touch on the Cabanos-based festival, but we're gonna talk some basically the news of the week. Last week, STG make a bid to buy Alec Bradley for 70-odd million. So that will be the purpose on today's show. But let's say what we're smoking tonight. Who's one?
Mine is a late hour Churchill. I tried cutting it with.
It's not Churchill.
Oh, sorry, yeah, late hour Robusto. I always call the late hours the Churchill because that's the default cigar. The Vitola.
It's called Winston Churchill, the late hour Robusto.
For God's sakes, man! Listen, it's called the late hour Robusto. Okay.
Yeah, why you say Churchill then?
Because I like the Churchill more.
Okay, we don't have time for that.
Is the Churchill better? The
Possibly.
Churchill's better. The Churchill's
Possibly.
better.
I like the Churchill size, so
Yeah, the
I'm a
Churchill's
fan
nice.
of that slimmer sizes.
47 ring gauge 7. Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful cigar. But this one's really nice too. I really like this. I fucked up the cut.
It's usual.
What do you mean usual? I was using the DuPont cutter.
With this guy, it doesn't matter how much, what kind of cutters, how many expensive, how cheap, you always fuck them up. So.
Occasionally I do a good job, but
You know what? You can be good in making a how to cut cigar for dummies. You know those series of books for like English for dummies, computers for dummies.
Yeah.
You can do how to cut cigars for dummies. I think it will be successful because you literally try every single type of cut or shape or whatever.
I haven't tried every single one. I've tried punches. I don't like punches too much. I'm not a fan of them because it's just a tar-filled butthole, isn't it? That's all it is, man. I hate them. But what are you sampling or smoking or whatever you want to call it?
I'm smoking Viaje Throwdown Fathead. I don't know if you can focus. Can you focus?
Yeah, it's in focus.
Yeah.
Just
So
swirl it around to show the whole band.
it is a very interesting cigar. I'll explain a little bit about it. Viaje as a brand is one of the very favorite of mine boutique brands. Andre Farkas is the guy behind the brand. He make very unique cigars. Most of them are quite strong, to be honest. Quite peppery, quite spicy.
Too strong for me?
Most of them will be too strong for you.
Okay.
Well, I don't think this is way too strong than the Davidoff you smoked.
You said that one's a bit milder.
Yeah, this one, I haven't smoked this one.
Oh, I see.
So this is cigar which I have only one in my possession. It's unique because this is collaboration. One of the first collaboration between two big, what do you call it, channels, cigar influencers or stuff like that. Cigar Dojo and Cigar Federation. So they both collaborate with Andre Farkas to make him a cigar. And he throw them a lot of blends to both of them to choose one.
Yeah.
So this is the Federal Cigar Federation blend, the black one, the dark one, the San Andres one. And Cigar Dojo one is more Connecticut type. So they use Criollo wrapper. And both cigars been created 2015. Super limited release, no more releases or anything. They literally
So this is kind of a big deal then.
It's supposed to be. I don't think it's been. Some of the media's hyped it very well, rated very well. Others didn't rate it that well. I don't know. We'll find out. It's a San Andres wrapper. undisclosed filler, binder, anything. It was originally undisclosed factory, but I managed to find out they're made in Agenosa. So Nicaraguan, Eduardo Fernandez, he'll make a lot of cigars for Viaje. And that would be one of his cigars. So
What's up with undisclosed blends, man? I hate that. I hate that.
that's a probably purpose to another show where we can talk a lot about those.
Now, I want to
nonsense.
bitch about that a little bit, though, because, you know...
Well, a lot of undisclosed blends are just... They don't want to show them because of the FDA stuff. You know, because if you release a new cigar now, the blend need to be old one. You can't just create a new blend or etc. etc. Or my other explanation on that one is basically because a lot of companies, when they create a small batch releases like 2,000, 3,000 boxes or even less than that, they have some leftover tobacco or tobacco which is in a very limited quantity.
Yeah.
And they don't want to announce it. Just there's no point. If you say, oh, that's like 11 years old, whatever, 5 years old, whatever. It's not. They don't want to announce it. They don't want. That's why they even don't disclose the factories. You see more and more cigars. Oh, factory is a secret. We don't disclose it. Anything. Same was with this one. When they released it, there was an undisclosed factory. But I managed to find information
How'd you
through
find
sources. Well, I've got sources, and I found out also I know where Viaje make his cigars.
Yeah.
They're using like three factories, I think, 3 or 4 factories. And Eduardo Fernandez, he's well known for making a lot of cigars for other people, like Foundation Cigars, Viaje,
Light your
Crown
cigar
Heads.
and then carry on, man, because I know you want to smoke.
Yeah, you keep asking me
No,
to
no,
talk.
no. I
and
want you to
stuff,
light
so
while you're talking, man. I want you to
Well-
enjoy the cigar.
I need to concentrate when I'm lighting, so that's why I can't talk and...
I've already lit
smoke.
mine. I feel like, you know, I'm by myself right now.
Yeah, so... Well, very interesting cigar. Not much of a related to the topic tonight, but...
Nope. This one's what? Ecuadorian, Dominican. I don't know what the others are, but is it Ecuadorian wrapper?
Well, you should know. You smoke it.
All I know is it's a great cigar, and this is starting off incredible. Like flavors, whew, lovely. Just a beautiful, beautiful cigar. You can't go wrong with
Let's
this
see who make more smoky cigars, Dominican or Nicaraguans.
one. Nicaraguans.
Yeah, mine will be smoky as hell. I
Oh,
can tell you that.
you're gonna block my camera with the smoke, man.
Yep.
Let me see. Take a puff. It's coming.
It's very sweet.
Actually, it's okay. This is really sweet too. This is beautiful.
We'll see. Hopefully, not much of a pepper there. I'm not a big fan of the heavy peppery cigars. And sometimes, some cigars, some Viajes are quite peppery. But the Ganosa factory is very well known for a lot of people which are, let's say, longer in the industry and smoke a lot of cigars can recognize it's a Ganosa made cigar for ages. You know, from miles. It's usually that kind of licorice sweetness where not a lot of cigars have it now.
Can I just say, this is fucking excellent. Like, this has been dry box, hasn't it? And, oh my gosh. This is beautiful. Like, the problem with late hour Churchills, in my experience, or late hour series of cigars, they're a bit temperamental. Sometimes they are amazing. And sometimes they're just like, eh.
I think all those dark cigars, like yours, mine tonight, they need to be dry out a little bit. Because the wrapper is so thick, so oily, so heavy. Dry them out a little bit. I mean, don't leave them like 40% humidity for 3 months. I mean, dry them out like a couple of days before you smoke and take them out. Leave them on relatively like 55-60% humidity to dry a little bit. And the flavors are open way
much
more.
nicer.
I mean, this is my experience. Maybe
No,
not everyone
I'm
will agree with me. But I smoke a lot of dark cigars, a lot of strong cigars, you know.
I'm smoking.
I usually...
Mate, listen, I'm literally experiencing that as we speak. So yeah, I have to agree with you. This has been dry boxed quite nicely for a period of time. And honestly, it's just an amazing smoke.
Well, this cigar, your cigar has been kept on around 61 to 63% humidity in the last month or so. So it's a relatively not a 70 as some other people will keep them. Mine, I keep mine in the leather pouch. I'm walking in my travel humidor.
Show me your pouch. Show me your pouch.
It's just a leather pouch.
Show me your pouch, man.
It's a very old vintage leather
That's a
case
nice
pouch.
pouch,
where I keep this cigar in the last 3 days, I think, there. And yeah,
What's it starting off like?
it starts sweet, but now I can feel the tingle of the spiciness.
Yeah.
I expect that stuff.
Like a peppery spice or like...
Spiciness in the back of your tongue.
Ooh, nice.
The
Nice.
tingling.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
harsh.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
you get that.
I like that. Do you like spicy cigars?
Yes, if it's not harsh.
Yeah,
Sometimes
no,
you
not
get
harsh.
the baldy
Good
spice.
spice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. But anyway, subject-wise.
About time.
STG, man. They bought a company.
Another company. Let's say they bought another company.
Okay, another company. I know they buy a lot of companies, but they bought a company that has a revenue. They stated 25 million. They said it's 25 million, but every other website I checked Zoom Info and like some of the other websites that tell you. I mean, admittedly, their information might not be completely accurate because you never know, and they are a third party. So maybe SDG has got correct information because they've got shareholders, so they have to give correct information, right? But
They used to make some of their cigars as well.
they did,
So
yeah.
maybe they know from inside what actually the company worth.
Possibly, but the revenue is 25. The profit was about 5.5. That's the profit margin. That's how much money they were actually making. They bought it for 72.5 million on less than 6 million profit.
I'm not a businessman. I don't know what that numbers meaning. Are they? But again, there must be a lot of reasons. You know, we can just guess some of the reasons why they bought the company, and what was the purpose in there.
Why do you think they bought the company? Because it doesn't have a factory, right?
I think STG have the idea to buy a lot of companies nowadays. Well, not a lot, but let's say every year and a half, they bought some company from the market, which produce certain amount of number of cigars. And Alec Bradley is not a small company by any shape or mean.
It's not a small company, but it doesn't have a farm. It doesn't have a factory. It doesn't have like, proper...
Yes, but they produce a lot of cigars. They have a lot of innovations. Alec Bradley has been one of the rebels in the market. They produce a lot of interesting cigars. They produce a diamond-shaped cigar. They produce a triangle cigar. They also have some quite expensive lines like Fine and Rare. Fine and Rare is
That
once
big
a year
chest humidor,
release.
right? Yeah.
Yes, and they do some that kind. They can do expensive cigars. They do the very famous black market Barbara Pulse, the St. Patrick cigar, the Irish cigar, which every year now is like 11, 12 years in the market. And always around this time, mid-March, beginning of March, that cigar is very hyped. They produce a lot of people buying it. Barbara Pulse cigar. So they have their share on the market. They have cigar of the year. Don't forget that.
They do.
Prensado became cigar of the year decade ago, a little bit over that.
I smoked the Prensado recently, the Robusto. When I was bitching about it a little bit, but when I smoked it, that was a gorgeous cigar. I was actually really good. I was impressed with that. I smoked it all the way down to the fingernail.
I told you, it's
Mate, that was a good cigar.
when the Prensado becomes cigar of the year, they, as far as I know, Alec Bradley been very, very surprised from that one because they were a super small company at that time. And a lot of people start asking about that cigar, start asking about their cigars, and they rush over a little bit. I read an interview
just to clarify, sorry for interrupting, but when they made that #1 cigar, was it Alec and Bradley who were running it, or was it?
No, it was their father.
It was the father who was running
Yes.
it? Okay.
Their father, Alan Rubin.
Yeah.
And he put an interview, I think last year in Cigar Journal, they released an interview with him where he openly say that was a mistake because a lot of orders happening in that time when they become #1.
Yeah.
And they wasn't ready. And because they don't want to miss the opportunity to sell a lot of cigars, they rush. And they create cigars which are not on a perfect quality.
Not on the same par, yeah.
And that was in the next few years, they will have a lot of struggles with some of those cigars. And until they realize, okay, we need to maybe produce less cigars, but to a certain level of quality what's supposed to be when they win.
Yeah.
But they already have the little bit of damage on that one. They already have like a lot of consumers, They didn't like the
construction. A lot of consumers started turning away from them, didn't they?
Yes.
Because they made... Fair enough, they got to #1. So for a period, there was that hype. Everyone was like, oh my God, this brand. We didn't know they were making cigars on this level. Lots of those cigars get bought out. Because I actually had a look online, right, to see what they were about. Because I wanted to see if it was a good cigar. And I was a little bit late to get hold of it. So maybe I got one of those crappy ones which they rushed out. Maybe. Because chances are all the good ones got sold out and then they were just kind of like, whatever, fill the shelves. And I smoked it and I was like, this is crap. Like it was genuinely just horrible. But then I smoked that one again recently and it was damn good. So it sounds like they've kind of corrected things.
Well, you won't be surviving if you're not doing that. And
No.
they came very cleverly and they make it clear that they did a mistake.
Yeah.
They accept the mistake. They send apologize to all the people who've been misjudged.
Who supported them.
Yeah, support them, and they didn't respond to the support, right? So, which is a fair point. But it was a big surprise when they sell it, when they actually sell their stuff to STG last week. I mean, we briefly talk about that STG. There was a rumors that STG were looking to buy a company after they both, they purchased Room 101 last year. There were rumors already they're going to buy another one. They discussing a big company.
Yeah.
A lot of people start asking who with the company. I don't think a lot of people expect that to be Alec Bradley. But now when I look backward and see what actually happened in the last 6-7 months, maybe make a sense in some point, because Alan Rubin leave the company to his sons about 3-4 years ago, I think. So literally he passed everything to them. They start creating their own blends. The first one was Blind Fate, then they create the Gatekeeper, then they create the Kintsugi. But actually they didn't create them by themselves. Ipi Ryu created them for them. So they collaborate with him, he helped them, he guide them. But they're quite young lads, the two brothers, Alec and Bradley. They changed the name on the company to Alec and Bradley, not Alec Bradley. They changed it because they both names, they're Alec and Bradley. And I saw Bradley in Germany last September.
Yeah, tell that story.
And Bradley didn't look very enthusiastic for that kind of stuff. And imagine that's one of the first show after COVID. So literally, they're supposed to be, burning from inside to show their product, to be hyped. Everyone on that trade show was so hyped. Everyone showing their product because that was the first show in Europe after 3 years pause.
Exactly.
And Bradley was just sitting on his table and he didn't pay much attention to what happened around him.
What was he doing?
He was just sitting and smoking and doing something on his laptop or something. He wasn't like some other people promoting, actually talking with influencers, with shops, with people, the distributors, importers. He wasn't busy. And I spent a lot of time close to him because next booth was one of my very good friends, Didier. And we spent the whole one evening there with drinking Belgian beers and smoking cigars.
Amazing.
And that was literally next to it. And there wasn't any people.
And the whole time Bradley just sat there and did nothing.
Yes, exactly. He didn't do that much stuff and he didn't seem interested.
So he just didn't have the passion for it then. He was just kind of like...
Maybe they were already in the talks because that kind of purchase, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't happen overnight.
So maybe they already have the interesting talks with STG regarding that kind of purchase.
So he was already kind of out of it, wasn't he? He was already like thinking about selling. So from his perspective, it's like, well, I'm already out. So I'm just here to show my face and, keep up appearances. But then company sold, is done. I'm kind of out of it.
Yeah, it's a still few unclear stuff what's going to happen with the company because I think STG will wants to keep some of the innovations, the new lines they produce, and STG own few big shops in the States, Cigars International, etc., etc. They can sell everything in that shops.
Yeah.
So,
but the valuation though, the valuation is still crazy though. I get that it's a big brand. I get that. I get that they sell a lot of cigars, but they don't have any like cigar manufacturers that have factories and. This is the point that you raised, which we're going to get onto, and why SDG doesn't want to... Well, sorry, Davidoff made a mistake about this. But point is, Alec Bradley doesn't have they don't have a factory. They don't have any hard assets in terms of that can pump up the valuation and say, okay, we've got this as well. So we might not have the revenue, but we've got this. But their revenue isn't huge. It's decent. But it's their profit margin. The profit margin is really low. It's only 5.5 something million. But they were bought for 72.5. 72.5 million. It's a big jump from 5.5 million.
Yeah, but let's say STG because already STG start producing their cigars, some of their cigars. If I'm pretty sure they're going to move completely the whole production to STG. STG have 3 factories in DR, in Honduras, in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
So they have no problem to produce the Nicaraguan Alec Brothers. They don't have problem to produce Honduran Alec Brothers. So if they start producing more and more, let's say, double up the production. Probably they have the capacity to sell them in their shops.
Yeah.
They don't need to have the middleman. They produce the cigars and they sell them in their own shops.
Directly.
So even you carry the Alec Bradley's name, everything going for them. So if they double the capacity, which maybe is not ideal, not realistic, but they can make 10 million.
It's possible though. I mean, they've got the capacity to double it quite comfortably, right?
And
it's not that difficult.
When you're producing them in your own factory and selling them in your own shops, you don't have a lot of costs.
Exactly.
So
do you think the profit margins are going to increase?
Definitely.
Yeah.
If they don't increase the profit margin,
there's no point buying it.
Those people don't know how to rule that company. Yeah. I mean, the director's board or whatever. If they don't know how to increase that 5 million profit, if it's that real profit, 5 million, next year, probably even people without that much qualification, if they
could turn that into like 10 million.
They can do that 10 million probably easy. Yeah. I don't know. That sounds from the side point of view.
But one of the points you made, which was quite an interesting point. Remember when Davidoff bought, who did they buy? Camacho? Mm-hmm. They bought Camacho. Camacho had a farm. Camacho had a factory as well, didn't they?
Yes, Camacho. So they both everything related to Camacho. I mean, I don't think they buy all the fields. But they buy a lot of fields. They bought the factory.
That was the key thing. And you mentioned, and I'm going to let you tell the whole story, but you said that Davidoff made a big mistake in buying that company with the factory. And they should have just.
It's my opinion. Again, I don't want to push the people into my opinion, but I think that was a mistake because they, as far as I know, they completely rebuilt that factory.
Yeah.
So
well, they tore it down completely.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that was been many years ago when I was still have no idea what was Camacho, what was Davidoff. I was still smoking Cubans in that time, so I've not been around non-Cuban world in that time. So it's just stuff I read about it. People told me. How true are they? In cigar world, there's not many press releases, especially 10 years back, 12 years back, 15 years back. So I don't know.
People didn't talk much back then.
Yeah. And I don't think it was that big news back in the time because Camacho wasn't being that big company. It was decent company, but not big as that level. So.
No. But the point that you made, which I thought was quite an interesting point, was that they took the factory completely down, tore it down to bits, and built it from scratch. And the reason for that is because, as you said, Davidoff is a very, very technical company. They want to control everything from start to finish, and they've got a particular process. They've got what? How many? 72 or something? What's their quality control measures? How many do they have?
Few hundred.
Few hundred, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to have few hundred quality control measures in place, then you can't do that in someone else's factory.
Yeah, well, Davidoff, even if you take, for example, I know we're going to go a little bit sideways on that way, in that story, but even if you take, for example, the Davidoff rollers, Torcedores and the Roleros, Boncheros, all those guys, if you want to become a roller in Davidoff and start rolling Davidoff cigars, you need to spend a decade in the farm, in the field.
You start from right on the bottom, right?
It doesn't matter where you come from. So even if you come from Fuente, from Carrillo, from La Aurora, all the Dominican guys, even if you come from abroad, from Nicaragua, Cuba, you start on the field from the planting seeds to move to the factory, start with other side brands like Avo, Griffin, all the mainframe brands.
Yeah.
And then you might become to the Davidoff, maybe with the cheaper Davidoffs. And until you go to the one you smoke at the moment, the late hour, it will take you 10 years. It doesn't matter how experienced you are before that.
So do you think this is why you don't get like famous rollers going to Davidoff? Because there's just too much of there's just too much of a, you gotta wait 10 years.
I don't know, I've never been in Davidoff. I don't know if Davidoff have that many famous rollers, and I've not been there, and there's not many cigar rollers in the cigar world where they make their name, like Hamlet, like Maria from Lopalina, etc., etc. So I don't know, it's an unknown. I don't want to speculate there.
Okay.
About why the people don't join Davidoff or they join Davidoff or anything. It's just.
But it makes sense though, right? I mean, think about it. If you're a famous roller, in Cuba, you made like some ridiculously fancy cigars, or you've come up with some interesting things, and then you go over to Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, or Honduras. You've got these three choices essentially, right? These are the three major.
Or you can go to the States as well.
Yeah, but let's say you want to go there. If you want to go to the Dominican Republic and you want to start rolling cigars for Davidoff, you got to start from scratch again.
Yeah.
So the amount of time you have to invest in again is another 10 years. And you're kind of like, well, I might as well go to Fuente. Might as well go down the road to Fuente, start rolling for them. They'll appreciate.
Yeah, but those big companies, like top quality companies, we know it's. I don't think it's that easy to start working for them as a master roller straight away.
No, I get that. Yeah.
You go in some point of hierarchy, in some if you go in Fuente, if you go in La Flor Dominicana, in those companies, you're gonna start in some lower position. It doesn't matter which level you've been in Cuba, because in Cuba they are on levels, level whatever, the roller or stuff like that. Even if you can roll on Cerus, Salomons, Perfectus, you're going to start probably in some lower point, spend a year or two maybe in a lower position, then we'll move forward to the front of the...
Except for Hamlet. He didn't. He went in straight and, what was it? Rocky Patel, right?
But Hamlet didn't start rolling cigars for Rocky for like a year.
Still, it's a year.
He started working in his bar and stuff like that. And then they realized he can make stuff. And as Rocky explained to me when he was in my lounge, he told me that basically Rocky, as a joke, asked Hamlet to make a blend. And Hamlet created like 150 blends for 2 days. And they try most of them, and they was like, wow, all of those can be a cigars.
All of them.
And that's why Rocky gave him the full carte blanche to play around and create the sidelines and name it after him.
Yeah, because the cigar's actually named after him. There's a big H on the band, which is crazy if you think about it, because Rocky Patel loves his name on his cigars. And he allowed Hamlet to have his name, not just on the cigar band, but like, there's a big H on it. It's like, it's his whole, it doesn't look like a Rocky Patel cigar. It looks like a complete different brand. It looks like these are just Hamlet cigars, but they're not. They're Rocky Patel cigars with the Hamlet series, right? But that's the difference. So there are some rollers that I've kind of...
Yeah, but not many.
No, not many at all. There are very few. But you've gone into like an inch of your cigar. Tell me about your cigar.
Sweetness gone. I've got that licorice stuff. You get it that on the back of the stuff. The spiciness is very low as well. I don't know. I very rarely start talking about weird flavors and stuff. For me, that's a bit of nonsense. But as a main flavors here, you got that weird sweetness from the licorice sweetness again.
Yeah.
And it's quite leathery.
But are you liking it? Are you enjoying it?
I like it. And you can see construction wise. It's almost perfect.
Mine's burning a little wonky. I mean, not by much. Like, it's just slightly wonky, and it's just been wonky on one side the whole time. Also, the draw's a little bit tough on this one. And I kind of like that.
I know you're always talking about the draw and stuff like that.
What's your draw like?
Perfect. As tight and loose as I like it. So it's no issues.
Exactly the way you want it.
Yeah.
But STG, why do you think, going back to the main subject at hand, because we kind of went off a little bit on that one, STG, why do you think they're purchasing so many of the brands? Because Room 101 was last year.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a surprise. Right?
Kinda. I'm not that deep into the American brands and knowing every single thing of them. Yeah, I know Matt Booth, but Matt, we're not that close, so Matt can tell me, oh, you know what, I'm going to sell my brand and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it came as a surprise. Maybe the people who are more invested in the US market, they know better.
They're going to know that what's
eventually
going on.
can happen. Like rumors, especially the people like me in Europe, we're not that much invested in that stuff. Okay, I have some connections. I've got friends which can tell me some news, some, even something not official like rumors or whatever. But I didn't know about Room 101. That was a surprise for me because...
It was a surprise for a lot of people.
But
none of us expected it.
Matt Booth is a very interesting personality. Even if you listen to him or if you with him on a chat or stuff, you think he's like mentally crazy or something. He's like bipolar. Honestly, the jokes and the stuff he throws all the time, you're not going to believe that's actually a serious person. But it's very cool character. He's a jeweler guy. It's ex-military.
Yeah, you keep telling me about his jewels and like some of the stuff
he makes some custom-made rings and bracelets, chains, all kind of stuff like that.
So do you think that he just wanted to go back to that?
No, he's still working on that. He has still studio. He's selling a lot of his stuff. I think he's a more creative person, just as a create stuff.
He's not that much. Less of a business.
not that much as a blender.
Yeah.
I think most of his cigars have the help from someone. He don't have a factory as well. There's a different factory making cigars, so maybe he have the help for a blend. But he's now, when STG bought the Room 101, they make him a creative director to STG, which is a very good point. You know, Matt Booth have a huge imagination. He can create the weird stuff, and I'm sure he can work on a new. I think he changed already a few buns on their existing lines, and in the future he will be the guy who create the buns most likely. I mean, the art on the buns,
Yeah,
which is a big thing.
that is a big thing. I mean, that's one of the first. That's the first impression you have on a cigar, right? It's the band, the box, the styling, the way that something's been produced. But then that does say a lot about what SDG valued with Matt Booth. Like Matt Booth, you know, yes, he made an incredible brand, and the cigars are fantastic. But SDG put him as a creative director.
Yep.
It means that they don't want him to touch the blends anymore. They want him to touch the designs.
Well, we don't know how much he touched the blends before that,
That's true.
because we all know he's behind Room 101, but is actually he blend them? Maybe, but maybe not. He might use the help from other people, the factories who create those
And he's
cigars.
just working on the
And
branding.
he's just working on the branding, promote it and release it and stuff. He didn't
yeah.
produce that many different cigars. Okay, he has some few limited editions. He done some collaborations with Privada Cigar Club. He done some collaboration with Lost and Found, with Robert Caldwell. They did the Tea, which is a cigar between Caldwell, Matt Booth, and
Is that the one where they all signed on the box?
yes.
Yeah.
So there's a few collaborations. His own cigars, okay, he have the Fars. He have some it's very marketing, a lot of marketing.
I like the fast, you know. I thought, because we talked about the fast, and you said, you know, you weren't too keen on the fast, were you? What do you think of it?
I think it's just a regular cigar, nothing special. But Matt Booth have some very interesting cigars. I mean, Namakubi, the Johnny Tobacco, they are very interesting. Back in the time, Room 101, I have a huge collection of Room 101's old stuff.
Yeah.
And I like most of them. Even before, when he was with Davidoff back in the time with Camacho, he makes some interesting cigar. I don't know how involved he was in that one, because he came out of nowhere. I mean, he's one of the, I think there's 5 people which are classed as like the parents of the boutique cigars generation. Pete Johnson, Tatuaje, Matt Booth, Room 101, George Rico from Gran Habano, Dion Giolito joined a little bit late.
I like Gran Habano. I like Gran Habano, by the way.
Nick Melillo Foundation, Steve Saka, Dumbarton. So those are the people which are that kind of generation. They all start like a young lads jumping in the industry without having anything in the background. You know, none of them been like 7th generation in tobacco, 5th generation or whatever.
They all
newbies in the industry. They all start in that boutique movement. Let's say that way.
So I have a slight theory, and I might be wrong, but my theory is that we've been going through a boom in the cigar industry, and it's been going on for quite some time. And then COVID happened, and then the boom kind of went exponentially higher, right? So we were experiencing a boom before COVID as well, and people were thinking, "Oh, we're getting to the end of it." COVID happens, bang! The whole, sales across the board shoot up. Everyone makes a shit ton of money, and then we're still going through that boom. Like Cuban cigar prices go up, they make a ton of money even after the price increase, and everything is going up. And I think that a lot of the boutique brands, this is just a theory, like I could be wrong, but I think that a lot of the boutique brands are recognizing that maybe they're not going to be able to weather a bust, or they're going to have a lot of problems, or they're not. I don't think they're gonna go out of business, many of these brands. But I think that they just didn't want to go through the hassle of that, and they see that the valuation of their companies are really high. They're going through that boom, so it's a good time to sell, because you sell on a high, right? What's the point selling on a low?
It's a very good point. I mean, a lot of companies which don't have factories, they're not vertically integrated, they don't have fields, they create a lot of limited edition cigars. I mean, small batches, production, now even like the one I smoke at the moment.
Yeah.
So Viaje don't have factory, they create a lot of limited. He's one of the probably the most crazy people creating limited edition every month or something.
Yeah.
And next year he re-release it, change a little bit in the blend because it's undisclosed blend. You have no idea what he change the size, create another cigar. So those stuff, you basically use, my opinion is most of those limited editions, special releases and stuff, they're very hyped.
Yeah.
Because you're already in the hype. The followers on Viaje, for example, they're going to buy whatever he release.
Yeah.
Whatever size he release, 5x60, 6x60, Salomon, 7x70, they'll buy it. Just because he already created the hype around his brand.
Yeah.
And doesn't matter what he's selling. And if it's not a good one, they'll be like, okay, this was a bad edition, let's see the next one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you already create that hype. You already people expecting next release of the zombie edition, next release of the antidote, next release of the whatever. You're waiting that one. You're already on the hype on that line.
Yeah.
And doesn't matter what you're selling, you buy it.
People
and because you don't create a core line where that need to keep your company running, you don't lose that much.
No, you don't.
And now when the hype is there, when you have the boom, a lot of companies will struggle to produce their core lines. You don't have the tobacco. Don't get me wrong. The problem
that's
is
a good
tobacco.
point because
Every
just
year,
sourcing that tobacco is difficult.
Every year, there's a problem with certain types of tobacco.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies start thinking about getting tobacco from Colombia, from Paraguay, from Argentina, from Brazil, where usually nobody sourced before that. Because if you're looking for a certain type of tobacco, you don't have where to buy it. You need to buy maybe lower quality or something different flavor profile because it's been grown in different country or stuff like that. And with when you realize, okay, I might not be able to produce my core line, what are you gonna do? You're gonna change and go like something lower quality.
Exactly.
So people will lose the hype with you.
Yeah.
Or just creating something. And when the big companies say, oh, I like Alec Bradley, they have a lot of limited editions. I like Room 101. Room 101 create ton shit of limited editions as well.
Yeah.
They decide, okay, we'll buy that one. We'll keep like all those weird limited editions where we can use our tobacco, which we don't use. Put it in that one.
Because it's all undisclosed, so undisclosed. So they
most
can just
of the stuff are just undisclosed. You can cook whatever you want, similar to what is in there.
Yeah.
And you can use all kind of your own tobacco. And XTG have farms, they have fields.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have a lot of tobacco which they can't use. Or they don't find a way to use it in a blend.
So now they can put it in these.
They can put it in those different blends. Again, Room 101, Alec Bradley, they have probably a lot of SKUs in their core lines as well. They have a lot of stuff. And they also produce a lot of limited editions. So it's one of the ways to move that tobacco somehow in those blends. And as well, the brands like Alec Bradley, maybe they realize they might struggle to find tobacco for some of their blends.
Yeah.
And they were like...
So you've got the struggle of the tobacco, of finding the tobacco for the core lines and for some of the blends, because they're not vertically integrated. They don't have a farm. They don't have a factory. I know I keep saying that, but I think it's an important point to mention. And they're in a position where someone's sniffing around, potentially looking to buy them. Their valuation is like really high because sales are really high. We're going through a boom. And this is like the perfect time to sell. Perfect time to sell.
Yeah,
right?
if you want to sell...
You always sell on a high.
If you want to sell, it's a good position. It's a cigar bomb. Again, this Alec Bradley is a company which I don't think they struggle. So
no.
They sell a lot.
They might have... In terms of struggle, I don't mean like struggle as in like, they're not going to be able to keep the lights on. What I mean is their sales are going to go down lower. Their valuation is going to go down lower because everyone's going to experience that, right? When the bust happens, which is likely to happen in the next few years because the price is just going a bit nuts at the moment. And as with most things, as they go up, they probably need to come back down as well. So
price go up. I'll stop you there for a minute. Price go up. The quality is way less than what's supposed to be.
Yes.
So a lot of people who follow me more closely in the social media, they know I smoke a lot of weird cigars, a lot of hyped cigars, a lot of limited, new, whatever you call it. I try to go with a lot of brands. I buy a ridiculous amount of cigars which I even don't like, just to try the new version, the new idea. And the quality in the last 2 years is below whatever been in the lowest point before. You smoke cigars which are like $20, even let's say 30 pounds in UK, and sometimes the cigar you can't keep the cigar lit. You relight it 5 times, burning wonky, bitterness and ammonious and everything. It's just because people want to buy cigars. There's a cigar boom, obviously.
Yeah.
But the farmers don't produce that much more tobacco because even if you know all the new non-Cuban cigars, they say we're using 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 12 years old tobacco. Do you think 10 years ago, 5 years, or 3 years ago, the farmers produced 20% more? I don't think so.
No.
Tobacco, raw tobacco.
Yeah.
They produced a little bit more than what was previous years, and even if they didn't sell their production, they didn't roll them. There's no point for them producing more next year. And now rollers and the companies who make cigars, they want more tobacco. Where the tobacco coming from? And also the sizes go up.
The size of every single
early
brand.
90s, where was the last cigar boom, because of the cigar aficionado, etc. I think in America, they sold close to 450, 460 million cigars for 1 year.
Yeah.
Last year, I think the numbers was 470 millions in America for 1 year. So that's matching that boom.
That original boom.
But 1994, 95, 96, biggest size was Robusto, 5x50. Nowadays, the most selling size is Toro. That's by far.
By far.
So Toro, Gordo, you see every company have 6x6.
Oh my God, yeah.
Every company.
Everyone, yeah.
Even Davidoff, even Cuba start looking now to 55, 57, 58 ring gauges.
They're just getting crazy.
So the amount of, this is 52 ring gauge by 5.5. Yours is 52 by 5, I think. The amount of tobacco in this cigar.
I think it's 5.5.
And okay, the amount of the tobacco in this cigar and 6x60 is way different.
Massive difference.
So you're selling exact number of cigars as before, but the amount of tobacco you put inside
is a lot.
It's way more. So you don't sell that much Lanceros. You don't sell, a lot of brands don't make Lanceros. They don't sell.
Yeah.
You don't sell Coronas. Who smoke Coronas now?
So point that you're trying to make is, you've got all this. We've got a boom. We've got all this tobacco being sold. We've got much bigger sizes of cigars being sold because the demand for bigger sizes is so. Not only do we have loads of cigars being sold, we've got lots more tobacco going into each cigar.
Yep.
So they need to source that tobacco, which is they're probably going to struggle because you've got a finite amount of land that you can produce the tobacco on.
And how some companies maintain that?
Wait. Let me just. So what I'm saying is, do you think that, or in your experience, are you finding that the quality is just not there?
No.
In a lot of.
Yeah.
Really?
It's not there. Quality is not there. A lot of companies. I smoke even on a blind taste when I'm part of the Cigar General panel. Sometimes I smoke in one session 2 or 3 cigars from same line, just different sizes, and they taste differently. And that's a blind taste. I don't know what I'm smoking. I know way after that.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the bigger engages, a lot of companies throw all kind of stuff in the fillers.
Just to kind of make to make the numbers.
Something which is close to a blend. But for me, 6x60 never tastes the same as the Robusto from the same line.
Never.
I've smoked it many times, back to back even I've tried. 5x50 and 6x60, they taste completely different. So, okay, even if the people say, oh, they should be the same blend. Well, I can guarantee they're not.
They're not, no.
How you can make the same blade if you use 4 leaves and if you use 5 leaves?
Yeah.
So how you make it the same? It doesn't make sense.
Theoretically, you're supposed to be able to, move things around and expand. And if you can make something small, you can make something bigger as well. If you use the correct calculation, the correct way to kind of upscale it, you can do it. Technically, you can, but
Man,
it's
honestly,
really
this
difficult.
is so complex, and sometimes when you buy let's say the difference in the sizes is in America or production price is 50p or 50 cents or $1 between Robusto and Toro.
Yeah.
In the Toro, you have like 20% more tobacco in there.
Yeah.
And
which is a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, it's ridiculous, and it doesn't make sense if you're using same quality tobacco. It don't make sense. Okay, a lot of people say Lanceros are more expensive because wrapper is the most expensive leaf. Kind of makes sense. But when you go to Toros, why they're more expensive? Wrapper doesn't cost that. Wrapper costs more, but you use the same amount of wrapper almost in the Toro and the Gordo and the Robusto. Still,
that might be. You could put that down to marketing, right? Because it's a bigger cigar. So you could just say, well, it's a bigger cigar. You've got a longer smoke, so you could potentially charge a little bit more for that. And people would be willing to pay for that because they're like, oh yeah, I can smoke this for longer.
Why you charge more for Lancero then?
Lanceros are tough to roll. Lanceros are tough to roll though.
No, people charge more for Lancero because of the wrapper.
That is one of the points. That's one of the points. But they also say Lanceros are tougher to roll, so you need specialist rollers for them. They have potentially more. Basically, if you have more errors with Lanceros, then you've got more wastage. If you've got more wastage, then it's going to cost more. So that's probably bumping up the price of Lancero. But the Toro, easier to roll. Yes, it's got a similar amount of wrapper leaf compared to a Lancero, but it's a bigger cigar, so you can charge a bit more for that as well.
Yeah, I guess. Well, you put more tobacco, but again, I don't think they put the same quality tobacco in the bigger sizes. For me,
because I've experienced that too. I've experienced that too. This is why I don't like big ring gauge cigars, because a lot of them are just bland. There's nothing to it. It's just meh. I'll smoke it, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But then I'll smoke the same cigar in a different size, and I love it. Makes a huge, huge difference. And I don't think a lot of people appreciate how much of a difference the Vitola makes. The Vitola is like one of the biggest things. But the point I want to come back to about the fact that there isn't enough tobacco, or there may not be enough tobacco, and they are doing this, and you're potentially getting cigars which are just not up to the same quality. Do you think that people are going to start pushing back, and we're going to start seeing fewer sales, and the fewer sales compared to the fact that the demand was expected to go higher? Because a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, well, the demand is going to carry on going higher, and they're kind of ramping up production and doing more. They're buying all these farms and all that kind of stuff. Same thing that they did in the 90s, right? All these brands, they started putting a lot more money into producing more, because they're like, wait a minute, we can't produce enough to serve the market, so let's put some money into production. But then if the demand goes down even slightly, they're screwed.
yeah, well, it's again depend where you're selling. If you're selling in the States, the demand always will be for the big cigars. The literally people want to, when they finish work, they go to the lounge, they want $5 cigar, $7. They don't pay that much attention what's the cigar, what's the quality.
Yeah.
They just want to spend 2 hours watching
Smoking
football,
cigar,
smoking and
watching
stuff.
yeah.
In other parts of the world, like Europe, Asia, or stuff like that, cigars are way more expensive.
Yeah.
People
So
want
people
more
are conscious
quality
about what it is, yeah.
on this. Even if they buy big cigars, they expect to blow their mind.
Yeah.
And we know most of the time big cigars didn't blow your mind.
No.
From, I don't know when was the last time when I smoked 60 ring gauge and I was like, wow.
Never had a good 16
So,
gauge.
Okay, I have decent ones, but literally to prefer 60
Yeah,
than
but
50.
decent is very different from like...
And in Europe, not only Europe, the countries where the tobacco is based, the price is based on the weight and stuff, you pay way more for the bigger cigars. It's just, I don't think that will happen. And until Europe transition more and more into the non-Cuban cigars, the New World cigars, probably will still not find much of a difference. But in one point where Europe will smoke a lot of non-Cuban cigars, maybe brands will start realizing actually it's a good market to sell in Europe.
Yeah.
And they will pay more attention on the quality. Because there's a lot of examples. I every time I smoke a cigar which doesn't burn well, didn't smoke well, I always put it. I'm honest, and I say, okay, this is not a good cigar. I like the brand, but this is an example which is not good made cigar. I don't mind telling that. Again, look at that. It's no problem on this cigar. But again, this is rolled like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So that's a vintage one.
A lot better,
so.
yeah.
Yours new one, I think is performing well.
It's burning a little funky.
You don't have like holes inside. You don't have like
No, I don't have
wonky
issues
stuff.
like that, no.
So, but sometimes, imagine if you have problem with that one. That would be like shame. It's 45-pound cigar.
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. If I had a problem with that, I'd be very annoyed about it. No, I get you. So, what I'm kind of hearing, or what I'm kind of like, hearing in terms of like what you're saying is, as the quality goes down and as the demand goes up, if the quality isn't there, then people are going to potentially start pushing back. So
They'll buy other stuff.
Yeah. Or they might just stop buying.
No, people who smoke cigars, they're not going to stop smoking.
They might come back. Do you think?
I don't think regular smoker will decide, oh, I don't like, my favorite cigar is X, Y, whatever, X, Y, Z, whatever. If they don't like the quality of their cigars, they're going to moan a little bit in the social media.
And then they're going to go to something else.
And they will go to the lounge, nearest lounge shop or whatever, tobacconist.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, I used to smoke this brand, but I don't like the quality last 5-6 months or whatever. Can you recommend me something else? Every decent tobacconist should be able to recommend something similar to whatever you smoke.
Absolutely.
And then you can decide, oh, actually, those are good cigars. I'm going to smoke in that one. And you completely ignore the other one. Maybe you come back in 6 months and try them again. But if you already have your new favorite brand, especially now that new brands every day, new lines every day, you find your favorite ones, you keep smoking your favorite ones.
So do you think that as we as we kind of move into this area where we have experienced the boom for a long time, companies are now selling because they're making a smart move, right? They're selling to bigger companies like STG. STG is kind of like trying to get its lineup clean because they want to compete. They want to compete with the biggest, which is General. And one of the few ways they're going to do that is by having more brands under their name. So a lot of these smaller brands who may not be able to weather the storm of a potential bust, do you think that they are selling because they see that a bust is potentially going to happen, and that's why they're thinking this is a good time to sell? We're high on everything, our numbers are good, our sales are good, our profit margin is good, and these companies want to pay top dollar for our brands. But they're selling because they are predicting the fact that the market is going to go down soon.
I don't know. It's
But what do you think? We're speculating.
We're speculating. Yeah, we're speculating. We make sense certain point, but also it might be a decision just because the people, especially for the example with Alec Bradley, Alan Rubin created the company 20 odd years ago. Maybe his ancestors, his sons basically, they don't want to be involved that much in that industry. They might be find another way where they want to invest that money they managed to sell the company.
Yeah.
And they want to do something completely different. There's many occasions where people literally stop making cigars for a long time of period. Good example, CAO, the company which STG bought again.
Yeah.
CEO was a family-owned company, supposed to be family-owned company.
Yeah.
Kano Ozenger, I think that's what the CEO mean. Kano A. Ozenger.
Yeah.
So
I never knew that, but
he's a Turkish guy.
Yeah.
He used to own the CEO. When STG bought the CEO, General, etc., they sell everything. He stopped making cigars. He was completely... Well, he tried a little bit with crown heads. He left and he didn't make cigars. He came back on the scene last year. He now makes his own cigars, Ozinger.
What's it called?
New Ozinger.
Ozinger.
Yeah.
Good.
I haven't smoked yet. It's one of the brands which a lot of people predict good future because basically the name they carry. The guy used to be one of the biggest interesting cigar makers back in the time. So again, there was like probably 7-8 years, maybe a decade, when this guy was completely not out of the industry. Nobody knew he would come back or anything. He just decided to come back, want to make again cigars. So you don't know what's going to happen with Alec Bradley. They might come back in 5 years and say, well, we tried something, we didn't work. Let's start again making cigars.
Well, they've got money to be able to do that now.
Yeah, they can create new brand.
Exactly. They've got the money to be able to move around and do things and maybe, go into some other business and try something. Or in about a few years, once non-compete order probably closes or whatever, they could maybe come back into it.
Yeah.
So there's potential. But I do think that we're getting to a stage.
Very, very rarely you see a brand which sell to someone else and the person behind it never come back. Matt Booth did it the same with at the beginning when he was making cigars in Davidoff. He can sell it, say I'm retired, I'm not making any more cigars. A few years later, come back. Ozinger, good example, come back in a few years. Even the Aero family, Aladino.
Yeah.
They sell Camacho.
And then they came back.
And they have a non-compete agreement. When that finish, they come back with a new brand, Aladino. So a lot of people, it's not that easy just to left the industry and never come back. So who knows? I'm pretty sure Alec Bradley will come back in some shape or form.
So here's a question which is slightly off the subject, just a little bit anyway. Tour imports. This is a UK-based question, right? Tour imports normally only want to mess about with the companies that are vertically integrated. How did Alec Bradley slip the net?
You need to ask them. I don't know.
But you ever wonder?
Well, they introduced Room 101 as well to the market. Room 101 not vertically integrated, but Alec Bradley
that was a new brand.
Alec Bradley was part of their portfolio for ages.
Yeah.
Maybe back in the time they didn't care that much on and also they try to bring as far as they can get as many number one cigars, and Alec Bradley is one of the winners back in the time. I'm not sure they was already importing them when they become number one. They start after that.
I think they might have been.
I think they already import them, to be honest.
But with Room 101, Room 101's not vertically integrated, right? So they bought Room 101 recently. That doesn't really fit the bill. But they keep talking, They keep talking about how
Well,
we only
it's-
bring in vertically integrated brands.
Who
But
knows?
then,
You need to ask them. I don't know.
but it was just an interesting thought that I had. I was like, yeah, you know, how come they brought Room 101 and then Alec Bradley in? And then the two brands that they have, both of them sold to SDG. They've carried on with Room 101. They'll probably carry on with Alec Bradley as well, because it is selling relatively well,
Yeah.
especially their Barber Pole cigars. Apparently they do really well. So, yeah, I mean, it was just a thought that I had. I was like, you know, why is Tor Imports messing around with this one? Because they keep going on about vertically integrated, and say that a lot, right? Just a quick thought that I had.
Can't comment that one. I don't
No,
know.
I guess we can't. Maybe we should ask him. You know, next time we get Ricardo on this video, let's ask him. You know, what happened with Room 101? You're talking all this hype about vertically integrated. How'd you bring this one in then? And he's gonna be like, oh well, you know, we like the brand, and you know, we made an exception, something like that. It's gonna be some marketing answer like that, probably. It's not gonna be like a you know, oh well, you know, we didn't realize it wasn't vertically integrated. But what are your takeaways from this anyway? Because my ultimate takeaway from this is the fact that in the past, SDG were always lowballing brands, right? Whenever they bought companies, they always gave an offer which was like reasonable-ish, maybe slightly less than reasonable, but enough to kind of make the other company think, yeah, you know what, let's sell. And then Alec Bradley comes along, and then they just give an amazing valuation and buy the whole thing. So that's a crazy valuation still. Like, you have to admit, that is pretty
It's
high.
a lot of money, but
It's completely out of character for STG.
if you have the budget, if you have the money, you saw something, you've got your plans. I'm pretty sure they just didn't throw like that 70 odd million. They very well plan in the next year or 2 or 5 years how they're gonna get their money back. So we're talking for one of the biggest corporations in the cigar world, not only in the cigar world, in the tobacco world.
But you'd think that, you know, big corporations know what they're doing, right? Because they've got lots of people. You'd be surprised, man. A lot of big corporations make silly mistakes all the time. Microsoft is classic for that.
Yeah, but still, Microsoft is still on the market.
They're
One
still
of
in the market, yeah.
One of the leading companies. So even if the mistakes they did, maybe they didn't ruin them, they make them stronger. Next time they don't do that mistake.
Yeah, no, but like I said, just because it's a big company doesn't mean that they're not going to overshoot things or make mistakes or have, like, you know, lots of bureaucracy which prevents them from doing things fast enough and whatever. So it is a little bit nuts, in my opinion, how much they spent on this company. And I think that maybe they've got a plan, maybe they've got some idea. But if they're trying to compete with General, which they are, right? They're competing with General. That's their biggest competition.
I think it's not that out of mind bit.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's.
Why do you not think so?
Again, they can produce double the amount of the Alec Bradley produce already. They have where to sell them, Cigars
Yeah.
International.
Yeah.
They have few innovations which potentially can open the doors to make
But
more
are those
expensive
innovations
and
like,
limited.
are those innovations things that they couldn't do themselves without Alec Bradley?
Well, if you create something and patent it, probably you have the.
Have they got patents?
Well, the diamond cut cigar, I've never seen anyone doing that.
True.
The triangle
very
cigar
true.
they released last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone doing that. Again, this is a very small innovations, but they help. They bring to the value.
Yeah.
And also the Shamrock and the Filthy Hooligan, it's a very popular cigar, and it's
I don't
unique for
understand
the
why, but it's
it's
still
unique
popular.
unique for the stuff they do. You know, a lot of maybe that was one of the first super popular barber poles. It's not the first barber pole, obviously, but that's one of the barber poles where start selling everywhere. A lot of people out of the States actually seen that kind of cigars and hyped about it. And now a lot of companies obviously producing that kind of cigars, but that Filthy Hooligan Black Market still will be one of the main lines STG will produce, I believe. If they stop that one, that would be a shame.
They're not going to change because it's just too popular. It's far too popular for them to kind of think, oh, we're not going to make that anymore. Like, it's just be silly. Why would you buy the company and stop producing one of their most popular lines of cigars, right?
And again, you're buying a cigar company which have #1 cigar, and every year is in top 25.
Fair point.
So you don't buy only random company which never been #1. You see, Room 101, it's never been #1. Very rarely they go in top 10 even. And they bid, if I'm not wrong, was 8 or 9 million on that one.
Which was reasonable.
Yeah, but again, you don't have that much of innovation. So again, you buy a lot of limited releases lines, you can produce them. But in Alec Bradley, you have a lot of core lines, a lot of new production lines, and don't forget that the 3 new lines they released, Blind Fate, Gatekeeper, and Kintsugi, are blended by Carrillo. And Carrillo is one of the most hyped names at the moment. You see what happened last 5 years in Cigar Aficionado is very hyped. So, this is a blend created by Carrillo, which is owned now by STG.
Yeah.
So, all those stuff bring to evaluation in the end of the day.
So do you think it's a fair valuation then?
I think it's fair. Maybe slightly overpriced, but not much. If you think it's like $10 million worth of company, no. I think it's between 50 and 70. It's a fair bit.
I think 50 would have been fair. 72 is a little bit like quite a big chunk over what.
But there's not much of a clear information what else will happen after that.
That's true.
Because
so maybe they're seeing it from a long-term perspective and thinking, okay, this brand, like you said, they can double the production. They've got it all in-house now. They don't have that middleman that they need to pay anyone, so their production costs are going to be lower. So if you've got an extremely popular brand, maybe they are. Maybe they will make their money back within the next 5 years, easy.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to take over General?
I don't know, man. Those are not in my capacity. I'm just a humble cigar smoker.
What do you think of Plasencia, though? Do you think Plasencia is going to be buying out anyone anytime soon?
Never.
No?
No.
Why not?
Cigar has been family owned for 150 years.
No, do you think Plasencia will be buying anyone else out?
They to buy anyone else?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
They don't need. They're probably the richest company in the family-owned companies.
Exactly. Put some money behind something.
Why? They have enough. Why do you need to make the hustle? You got the biggest factory in Honduras, from all of them. Mm-hmm. You have quite decent amount size of factory in Nicaragua. Why they will want to buy anything? They need to change everything. They're one of the companies which innovate mostly in the farming.
Yeah.
So if they buy anyone as a farm or factory, they need to completely ruin everything and start all over.
Well, the way I was looking at it was
instead of buy another field and start growing there.
No, but the way I was looking at it was Davidoff buys a lot of brands, right?
Not a lot.
Davidoff has bought a bunch of brands.
Yeah, a few brands, that's it. They hasn't bought anything since the Camacho. That's 15 years ago. Davidoff, Avo, Camacho, Griffin.
Is Avo what they produce themselves? Avo was owned by someone else, wasn't it?
No, Avo used to make his cigars in Kellner's factory.
Right.
When Davidoff go there and buy the Kellner's factory, they also buy the Avo because Avo
That's
was
what I mean.
produced
They
there.
produced it. Right? They bought the brand Avo.
Yeah, but that was before Camacho.
So they haven't bought anything since then.
They bought Avo in the 90s. Griffin, I'm not sure what's the story in Griffin, but Griffin was between Avo and Camacho. Camacho was 2008, 2007-8.
Yeah.
Since then, nothing. Why they need to buy anyone else? They use Camacho to have a factory in Honduras.
And now they do.
Now they do.
But they bought the factory.
Maybe if they want to have a factory in Nicaragua, they might think to buy some brand, smaller brand.
Because they do make a lot of cigars in Nicaragua now.
No, not Davidoff.
Well, they're ramping up production because they're making a bunch more.
They don't make anything in Nicaragua.
No, sorry. They're using Nicaraguan tobacco.
A little bit. Even the Davidoff Nicaragua have one leaf at Nicaragua there.
Really? Is that it?
Yeah.
But they made puros, right?
Not Nicaraguan.
No, they made Dominican puros. That's it. Yeah, sorry. No, I got that one wrong. Dominican puros. And the Dominican puros are nice, though.
Zino Nicaragua, one leaf of tobacco there. Nicaraguan.
One leaf?
Yeah. Davidoff Nicaragua, 1 or 2 leaves.
I thought it was like... Honest to God, I thought it was a puro or something. That's why they called it Nicaragua. Why call it Nicaragua if you're just going to use one leaf from
That's
that?
Davidoff marketing.
That
I know.
that makes no sense.
When they released those yellows in Nicaragua.
Like, why isn't this called the Ecuadorian then? Do you know what I mean? Ah, well.
Who's going to buy a cigar called Ecuadorian?
They're not. Nicaraguan's the more hyped. location, isn't it? But yeah, I guess. Any final thoughts? Any final?
On the subject, not much. We discussed. I think it was a good discussion on that one.
Yeah.
I hope people will find it interesting and
I think it's interesting.
get
because
some
a lot of buyouts are-
knowledge on that one. Again, it's we just speculating. We choose just two guys which have nothing else to do, decide to film that kind of stuff and speculate about it.
No. Smoke cigars and speculate. That's
Yeah, we
different.
smoke cigars and speculate. We basically our thoughts. We decide to film them and discuss about them. So yeah, we'll next show most likely we'll be discussing the Habanos Festival,
Yes.
which will eventually will be a lot of news around there. As usual, I'm gonna rant in more. Usman will be more. Yes, the best. So you know how that works.
They are. No, that's not true. I don't think they're the best.
Usman tried to convince me to smoke a Cuban cigar on the next show. We'll see. Who knows?
If we're talking about the Habanos Festival, man.
Why you don't smoke Alec Bradley now?
Because we're not talking about Alec Bradley. We're talking about STG.
Yeah, Alec Bradley.
And I mentioned Davidoff. So, I mentioned Davidoff in the video, so I have to
we'll see what I'm going to smoke, but that will be next subject probably. In the meantime, we're going to try to do our usual Sunday casual chats.
So this coming Sunday, on the live stream, may not happen. We'll see how it goes, because you're going to be flying out to Nicaragua, aren't you? But we got to do a subject on that one as well, because I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah, when I come
Nicaragua.
back, we might do even we'll see, probably Habanos will be more interesting to do it.
Yeah.
And after that, we might talk about my trip in Nicaragua, what I've seen, what's the interesting stuff, what the disappointing stuff I've seen. So,
looking forward to that. But yeah, as usual, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to us talk whatever we feel like talking about. And it's just one of those things that I think we just need to get off our chest, because when the valuation came out, I was surprised. And I think you were surprised as well, were you?
I was surprised by the news, not the valuation. For me, the
I
news
see.
surprised me that they actually bought Alec Bradley.
Yeah.
That was the most surprise. Not the money. The money, I told you, I've never been into that kind of stuff. I'm not a businessman. I'm not a guy which operates a lot of money. So I don't pay attention that much on that point.
It was interesting to me, though, the valuation. But still, it's been a good talk. I've enjoyed it. As usual, thank you everyone for paying attention and listening in to our show. Like, subscribe, share this video. Comments as well. Comments and suggestions as usual. Really appreciate it. And we hope to see you all in the next one. Thank
See you
all.
soon, guys.
Smoke your cigars.
Smoke your cigars.